Lola had always dreamed of seeing the world. Growing up in Nigeria, she loved to hear stories about different countries, especially about Korea. She heard people talk about the delicious food, the tall buildings, and how people were always so kind and respectful. So when her parents told her they were moving to Korea, she was excited. It felt like a dream come true. The first day in her new school was both exciting and scary. Lola's school in Korea was huge. The walls were covered with colorful posters, and the students looked so different from her. They had different clothes, spoke a language she couldn't understand, and seemed to already know each other so well. When Lola entered the classroom, everyone turned to look at her. She smiled shyly, but no one smiled back. They whispered to each other in Korean. Lola didn't know what to do. She just sat in an empty seat in the back of the room, hoping someone would talk to her. But no one did. As the days went by, things didn't get better. Lola's classmates ignored her. They would laugh when she tried to speak in Korean. She felt small and alone. Every day, she would sit in class and watch everyone else talk and laugh together, but no one would invite her to join. One day, while walking home from school, Lola met a girl named Hannah. Anna was different. She didn't laugh at Lola when she tried speaking Korean. Instead, Hannah smiled and said, "It's okay, you'll get better." Lola felt a little spark of hope. But things weren't as simple as they seemed. One afternoon, while Lola and Hannah were talking near the school gate, a group of girls walked by. They whispered and giggled when they saw Lola with Hannah. One of the girls, Mia, stepped forward and pointed at Lola. "You don't belong here," Mia said, her voice full of anger. "Go back to your own country." Lola's heart sank. She had never felt so hurt in her life. Why was Mia so mean? Why didn't anyone want her there? Lola wanted to cry, but Hannah stood up to Mia. "Stop being rude, Mia. Lola is my friend, and she belongs here just like you." That made Mia angry. "You think she's your friend? She doesn't even speak our language. She's different from us." Mia stormed off, leaving Lola and Hannah standing there, both confused and upset. Anna turned to Lola. "Don't let her words hurt you," she said gently. "You are strong. You belong here just as much as anyone else." But Lola wasn't sure. Every day, she felt more out of place. She struggled with the language, the food, and the customs. Even though Hannah was kind to her, she still felt like an outsider. One day, she overheard some boys in her class talking about her. "She's so weird," one boy said. "She can't even talk like us." Lola didn't know what to do. Should she go back to Nigeria? Should she stay and keep trying? It was so hard. She wanted to be like the other kids, but it felt like no one understood her. One morning, Lola decided to try something different. Instead of sitting alone at lunch, she walked up to a group of girls sitting together. She didn't know what to say, but she took a deep breath and smiled. "Hi, can I sit with you?" The girls looked at her for a moment. Then, one girl smiled and nodded. "Sure. Sit here." Her name was Soo-young, and she was the nicest girl Lola had met so far. Soo-young spoke a little English, and they started talking. Slowly, Lola began to feel a little more comfortable. But just when things seemed to be getting better, something unexpected happened. One day, the teacher announced that there would be a big school play. All the students would have to perform in front of the whole school. Lola's heart raced. She was nervous. She didn't know if she could do it. She barely knew how to speak Korean, and now she had to act in front of everyone. As the play rehearsals began, Lola struggled to learn her lines. The other kids seemed to pick it up so easily, while she had to practice every night. Hannah helped her, but sometimes it felt like it wasn't enough. One day, The teacher pulled Lola aside after rehearsal. "You're not ready," the teacher said bluntly. "I don't think you should be in the play." Lola's face turned red with embarrassment. She wanted to run away. She felt like giving up. She was tired of always feeling different, tired of always trying and failing. That night, she sat in her room, staring at the script. She felt like she was about to cry. But then, she remembered something Hannah had told her: "You're stronger than you think." Maybe she could do this. Maybe she could prove to everyone, and to herself, that she was capable. The next day, Lola practiced her lines harder than ever before. She spent every free moment working on the play. Even though it was difficult, she didn't give up. When the day of the play finally arrived, Lola's nerves were shaking. She stood behind the curtain, waiting for her turn. The audience was so big, and she could hear the other students whispering, "She's going to mess up." But when it was her turn, Lola took a deep breath, stepped onto the stage, and began to speak. She stumbled over a few words, but she didn't stop. She kept going, her heart pounding in her chest. The more she spoke, the more confident she became. By the end of her part, she had memorized the lines and was speaking clearly, like she had done it 1,000 times. The audience was quiet for a moment. Then, they started clapping. Slowly at first, then louder and louder. Lola couldn't believe it. They were clapping for her. For the first time since she arrived in Korea, she felt proud of herself. After the play, Mia came up to Lola. "You did great," Mia said, her voice softer than before. Lola smiled. "Thanks. I wasn't sure I could do it." "You proved everyone wrong," Mia said. "I guess, maybe you do belong here after all." Lola nodded, feeling a warm feeling inside. She wasn't just an outsider anymore. She had found her place in Korea. Lola couldn't believe what had just happened. The applause, the smiles, and even Mia's unexpected kindness, it was like everything had changed in an instant. The nervousness she had felt all those weeks seemed to vanish, replaced by a sense of accomplishment and joy she never thought she'd experience in a foreign land. As the school year went on, Lola began to feel more confident. Her classmates started to recognize her not just as the new girl from Nigeria, but as Lola, the girl who had stepped up on stage and done her best, no matter the odds. It was small at first. Soo-young would wave at her in the hallways, some of the boys would say hello to her during lunch, and the girls who once ignored her started sitting with her more often. But the true test came when the school announced a big event, a talent show. It was the kind of thing Lola had heard about in movies and on TV, but she never thought she'd be part of. Her heart raced as she sat in the classroom listening to the teacher explain it. Everyone was talking about what they would perform, singing, dancing, even playing musical instruments. Lola's palms began to sweat. "I don't know if I can do it," she said quietly to Hannah later that day. "You don't have to be perfect," Hannah replied, her eyes warm with encouragement. "Just do something that makes you happy. I'll be there to cheer for you." But what could Lola do? She didn't play any instruments, and she wasn't a great dancer. She couldn't speak Korean well enough to perform a monologue. And then it hit her, maybe she could show everyone a little piece of her home. She had an idea. The next few days were filled with planning. Lola spent her evenings practicing a Nigerian dance she had learned back home, one her mother used to do when they celebrated special occasions. It wasn't complicated, but it was full of energy and joy, something that always made her smile when she was feeling sad or lonely. But when the day of the talent show arrived, Lola felt a twist of doubt in her stomach. What if they didn't like it? What if they laughed at her? It was hard enough learning the language and adjusting to a new country. What if she failed at this too? As the talent show started, the first few performances were incredible. There were students singing and dancing with so much confidence. When Lola's name was called, her heart pounded in her chest. It was her turn. She stepped onto the stage, her knees shaking. The audience was quiet, waiting to see what she would do. Lola took a deep breath, remembering her mother's words, "Show them your heart. Don't be afraid to be yourself." She started the dance slowly, trying to remember every step. At first, the movement felt awkward, but soon her body relaxed, and she let the rhythm take over. The music filled her ears, and she moved with it, just like she had done back home. Her feet tapped, her arms waved, and slowly, the audience began to clap along. They were watching her, not judging, but cheering. It was as though they understood the joy behind each step, the feeling she was sharing. By the end of the performance, the whole school was clapping for her, louder than before. Lola's cheeks were red, her heart racing with excitement, but this time it wasn't fear, it was pride. She had done it. She had shown them who she really was. After the talent show, things started to change even more. Students who had once ignored Lola now greeted her with smiles. Su Young and some of the other girls invited her to sit with them at lunch every day. Even Mia started saying hello in the halls. The kids at school were no longer looking at her like she didn't belong, they were looking at her like she was part of the group. But it wasn't just the students who noticed the change. The teachers began to see Lola in a new light too. One of her teachers, Mr. Lee, who had always seemed distant and serious, stopped her after class one day. "Lola," he said with a smile, "you've shown a lot of courage. I can see how much effort you've put into everything. Keep going. You're an inspiration to others." Lola didn't know what to say. She was speechless, but her heart swelled with happiness. No one had ever said anything like that to her before. It made her feel like all the struggles, all the moments of doubt and loneliness, had been worth it. She wasn't just surviving in Korea, she was thriving. But just when everything seemed perfect, something unexpected happened again. One day, during a class break, Lola heard some students talking in the hallway. They didn't know she was standing nearby, so she could hear everything clearly. One of the boys, Ji-hoon, was saying, "Why does she have to act so different? She thinks she can just come here and do whatever she wants. It's so weird." Lola's heart sank. She didn't know how to feel. It hurt to hear that kind of talk, especially after everything she had been through. But she didn't want to cry. She didn't want to let those words hurt her. Instead, she walked quietly over to Hannah, who was waiting for her by the lockers. Hannah could see something was wrong. "What happened?" she asked. Lola didn't say anything at first. She didn't want to cause a scene. But finally, she whispered, "Some of the kids are saying I don't belong here. They think I'm weird." Hannah put a comforting hand on her shoulder. "People always say things. Don't let it make you doubt yourself. You've already proven to everyone that you're strong. Don't let anyone take that away from you." That night, Lola lay in bed, thinking about everything that had happened. She realized something important. It didn't matter what other people thought of her. What mattered was how she felt about herself. She had come all the way from Nigeria, learned a new language, made new friends, and stood up in front of everyone to show them who she was. And that was enough. The next day, Lola went to school with her head held high. She knew that some people might still have things to say about her, but she wasn't going to let their words change who she was. She had a right to be here, and she was going to keep proving it every day. Little by little, the kids who had once ignored her began to see her differently. They started to respect her for her courage, her strength, and her kindness. She wasn't just the girl from Nigeria anymore. She was Lola, her own person, someone who had found a way to fit in while still holding on to who she was. And from that moment on, no one ever questioned whether she belonged in Korea again. As the months passed, Lola's life in Korea began to feel more and more like home. Every morning, she would walk to school with a smile, excited to see her friends. Soo-young, Mia, and the others had become part of her close circle. They would chat, laugh, and share stories about their different cultures. Mia had even started learning a few words in Yoruba, Lola's native language, just so they could bond over it. Lola's confidence grew, and her classmates started looking up to her as someone who was brave and unafraid to stand out. They didn't see her as the new girl anymore, they saw her as a friend, a teammate, and someone who could bring something unique to their world. It felt amazing to belong. But even as everything seemed to be going perfectly, Lola knew she couldn't forget the lessons she had learned. She realized that her journey in Korea wasn't just about fitting in, it was about embracing who she truly was, no matter where she was. The stage she had stood on during the talent show was a symbol for everything she had overcome. It wasn't just about dancing, it was about showing the world the strength and beauty of her roots, the courage to be herself even when things felt hard. And every time she practiced her dance moves or spoke to her friends, she remembered that. One sunny afternoon, as the school year began to draw to a close, Lola received an invitation that would change everything. It was from the principal, Mrs. Park. She had asked Lola to come to her office after school. Lola's stomach flipped with excitement and worry. What could this be about? When Lola walked into Mrs. Park's office, she was met with a warm smile. Lola, Mrs. Park said kindly, I've been watching you these past months. You've shown such growth, both academically and personally. Your dance at the talent show inspired not only the students but also the teachers. You bring a special light to this school. Lola couldn't believe her ears. She had never expected to hear such praise. Thank you, Mrs. Park, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Mrs. Park nodded. We are planning a special end-of-year event, and we want you to be a part of it. We thought it would be wonderful if you could represent your culture by sharing your dance again. But this time, it will be more than just a performance, it will be a celebration of diversity. We want to show the students how much we can learn from each other. Lola's heart swelled with pride. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about bringing everyone together and showing them that differences didn't separate people, they made the world richer. She was no longer just representing herself, she was representing her entire community, her family, her country. The day of the event arrived, and Lola stood backstage, ready to perform again. But this time, there was no fear. There was only excitement. She had spent weeks preparing, not just her own dance but teaching a few of her friends the moves too. Soo-young, Mia, Hannah, and even Ji-hoon had joined her in learning the dance steps, and they were going to perform it together. When Lola stepped out onto the stage, she wasn't alone. Her friends were with her, smiling and dancing alongside her. The audience watched in awe as the group moved together, the rhythm of the Nigerian dance filling the air. The audience clapped along, their faces full of wonder. Lola had done it again. She had not only overcome her fears, but she had also brought her classmates together in a way she never imagined. As the music ended, the applause was deafening. Lola felt tears in her eyes, but these weren't tears of fear or sadness. They were tears of joy, because she knew she had finally found her place, not just in Korea, but in the heart of the people who had once seen her as different. After the performance, as the students gathered around to congratulate her, Ji-hoon came up to her. Lola, I'm sorry for what I said before, he said, his voice sincere. You're really amazing. I didn't understand at first, but now I see. You've shown us something beautiful. Lola smiled, her heart full. Thank you, Ji-hoon. I'm glad you understand now. The school year ended with a big celebration, and Lola had made more friends than she ever thought possible. She knew there would still be challenges ahead, there always were, but she was no longer afraid. She had learned that being yourself, embracing your differences, and standing strong in the face of adversity could change the world around you. And as she boarded the plane back to Nigeria for summer break, she felt proud of everything she had accomplished. Lola had started as the new girl, unsure of herself, in a strange new place. But now, she was living as a young woman who had conquered her fears, embraced her culture, and built lasting friendships. The world was big, but Lola knew she was ready to face it, no matter where she was. Her journey was just beginning. And as she looked out the window of the plane, she smiled, knowing that the next chapter of her life would be filled with even more adventures, because she was no longer afraid to be herself.